Peter Oliver, Emmy nominee for editing Baby Reindeer. Congratulations. How did you find out?
Thank you. How did I find out about the nomination?
Hmm.
I was on the tube actually, and when I came in London, and when I came up overground, suddenly my phone was going mad, going ping, 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 and lots of people were saying, "Congratulations, congratulations!" So my wife was waiting by the computer and just refreshing and refreshing to see, and then so she told me in the end.
Hmm. And what was your reaction after that?
Um, Nerves mostly because I'm not great in front of lots of people. So I thought if I have to get up in front of lots of people, then it'll be short and sweet. But I'm very, very excited to be nominated. And even if it ended there, then it's been a great ride.
Hmm. I mean, I feel like it's been such a whirlwind with the show in general because it dropped on Netflix in April and pretty quietly and then just exploded, record viewers. So what has it been like just being part of the whole Baby Reindeer ride, like, not knowing how it was going to be received and seeing it being received so well?
But when I first read the script and was part of it, I thought it was a little quirky show that might do okay. And I didn't see that much advertising on when we started out, and so I was like, okay, well, we'll see where it goes. And I think it was really lovely because I think word of mouth spread. And then people would say to me after it came out, after like a week, "Oh, have you seen Baby Reindeer?" And I was like, "That's brilliant." And I also sat next to people on the train and the tube going to work, and they'd be watching it, and that's really exciting when that happens. When the work you've edited and worked on is actually someone next to you in the train is watching it. It's really cool.
Hmm. Um,
Yeah.
what was when you first read the script for it, what was your reaction? Like, could you picture like how you would cut something? Like, what were the details in the script that, what kind of direction it had? Like, I know it obviously has voiceover. Like, were you thinking about how to edit the voiceovers?
But definitely, I think whenever I read a script, I always imagine it in my head and how like I imagine it. And I think, well, okay, if it's like that, and I was just really excited because it's kind of got that train spotting feeling. Excuse me. Um, it's got that excitement that train spotting had with the voiceover, and I just really liked. I really enjoyed reading it because it was very different from anything I've read before. And I phoned my agent and said we've got to push for this as much as we can. And I just couldn't put it down. I mean, I read the first four straight away, and I just kept reading and reading and reading, and then read them again just because I was like, it's just such a strange beast, really, and it was just so exciting to read. So I pleaded with my agent to get me an interview, and she did. So
So how did the interview go? I mean, obviously it went well, but did you have like a specific pitch in mind for Richard and I'm assuming Veronica Tefosco, who directed
yeah,
the first four episodes that you worked on?
well, I thought it was going to be Richard and Veronica, and then when I got to the Zoom, there was like 10 faces facing me on the Zoom, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And the place I was working at the time, they kept moving rooms, and so I was really prepared. And then by the end of like, because their Wi-Fi wasn't working, I had to go somewhere else, and all my notes were on the floor, and I was trying to get it together. And then we were suddenly in the interview, and I remember in the interview, I forgot Donny's name. And I thought, oh no, that I kind of said, "I'm really sorry, Richard, but I've forgotten the lead's name." And I thought, well, that's the end of that. And then I got them laughing, and I really knew the script by then. So I'd really researched, I'd read through a lot of the script and researched Richard's work. And Veronica's as well. Veronica's amazing back catalogue, and so they forgave me for forgetting Donny's name. And then a few days later, my agent phoned me and said, "You've got it," and I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
Just a minor detail that the lead character's name, no big deal.
No, exactly. I was like, oh, I've definitely messed that one up.
Mhm. One of the reasons I think the show is so watchable, and Richard has talked about this as well, is like he kind of made sure to write the show in a way that, you know, you could kind of end on like cliffhangers, for lack of a better word, and there's like a propulsion to it, like you want to watch the next episode. So what kind of conversations did you and him and also Veronica talk about, you know, like editing for that kind of pace where you just want the viewer to continue watching?
Well, that's interesting because I think it was all in the original script, and obviously Richard had performed it as a show before, but I purposefully didn't watch any of that of it just so that it was fresh to me. But you could really see where it was going in the script, and then Veronica and Christoph, the DOP, really you could feel the pace from their rushes, and I kind of knew how to slot things together. But in episode one, the beginning was a lot longer of when Martha first comes into the pub. But I think that we discussed it a lot, and we truncated it just because we didn't want her to look too weird. So, you know, you still had to think she was quite funny, and she's got lots of politicians on her phone at the end of that scene, and so it was a much longer scene, and we really truncated that because all the way through, I think Richard didn't want her to feel bad or strange. He was really empathetic and sympathetic with her, I think, and I think he always wanted her to look like a lost soul, or so that the audience always had sympathy for her. So if you hold on her for too long, you start thinking, oh no, she's really strange. And so he definitely we definitely worked on those parts so that she looked more of a lost soul than strange. And then towards the end, yeah, I think in episode one, it's him on the Facebook, and he accepts her as a friend. And that in the fine cut took a long time. We were going backwards and forwards, reactions, actions on his face, and just to get that right. And so that took a long time. And the same at the end of episode two, I think it's the canal scene. So the ends of the episodes did take a lot of time, just working the rhythm, working the rhythm, working the rhythm. But they were both so great, Richard and Jessica. So that, you know, you could hold on either of them for long amounts of time, and so it was a real gift to have them, such good performers, working the scripts.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think like what you're talking about there, like knowing when to cut away is so important there, and not to linger too long that, like, you know,
Mm.
either of them looks like a total weirdo, or, you know, but
Yeah.
and the show has a lot of awkward silences and pauses, or like eye contact, sometimes like in the camera too, and a lot of staring from Martha. So how did you go about, you know, finding the right moment to cut away from all of those?
I mean, Veronica always filmed the whole those where people are looking down the lens. She'd film the whole scene with those shots, and then would decide where they'd come in. But again, I think they were quite obvious. I think in the cafe scene in episode one, Martha touches Donny's hand, and then you go to this, oh no, what's going on? You know, and you think. Um, and you start getting pulled into her world, and then you start seeing her full face, and I think that that didn't change that much from my original edit, but it was I think Veronica had got that all in mind when she was filming, and sometimes when you're editing, you know exactly what a director thinks, especially if you've worked with a director before. I hadn't worked with Veronica before, but over time you kind of think, oh yeah, I know where we're going with this, and then she'd come in and just change smaller things around, or sometimes she'd say, you know, I've got a completely different idea, and we'd unpack the whole scene again and put it all back together. but yeah, I mean, again, Jess was so amazing at those pauses that you could either stay with her or go from her. And I think it's part of the storytelling to say, what are we trying to tell here, and how much are we giving away of the character? And so I think we were always thinking about those things. And Veronica came into the edit suite first of all. We did a director's cut, and then Richard came in, and we worked on his cut as well. And it was just really exciting to work with both of them. And sometimes they'd have difference of opinions, but it was kind of like it was different. As an editor, I'd kind of work one scene and then work it through again with Richard, and so we'd see different scenes and then work out which we wanted to go with, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is, based on Richard's life. So did you feel additional pressure editing a true story, essentially? And especially with him in the room, giving you notes?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, I've worked on a lot of documentaries, and with documentaries, if you have that pressure of telling someone's life story, I was working on a sex trafficking documentary a few weeks ago, a feature film, and you kind of have to you have to be really careful with that. And the same with Richard on his because it's so Richard, then he would add moments in the edit suite. He'd explain moments to you, and you'd go, okay, right, yeah. So I understand what's going on completely here, and um, and so sorry, my alarm keeps going. And so he would guide us through as well. And but a lot of the time he just loved what we were doing, and he would kind of say carry on. And then we would just keep refining it and refining it and refining it. And some scenes Richard would want more or less, and we'd go with that, because as you said, it was his life and is his life, and so you have to be respectful of that. And it's different from cutting normal drama or comedy. But what was brilliant about it is how he wrote the comedy into even the darker scenes. You still have comic moments in episode 4, for instance. And so I was always really amazed how he brought stuff back to comedy.
Mm-hmm. And the fourth episode, it's a monumental episode in the series, and that's the one you're nominated for. So what kind
Yeah.
of discussions did you guys have before that one, especially about the assault and how to edit it, and again, like what to show and like when to cut away?
I think uh, because it starts with the Edinburgh Festival, so we had to shoot that first because the Edinburgh Festival was happening before they actually shot the rest, and so we got a lot of those rushes first of all, and then the abuse stuff came quite late, and so later on, and so Veronica and I had really worked it and decided the pace and how much and how little to do in those scenes. And then yeah, I mean, obviously there's awkward moments, and when Veronica shot it and sent it to me to assemble, I had this real knot in my stomach and I couldn't work out what it was. And then I think my wife said it's because it's so awful what you're cutting, and kind of and I remember crying when Donny's on the floor afterwards, and that was the most emotional part for me, that that the abuser says, do you want a cup of tea afterwards, and how did you take your tea, kind of that uh that complete, that he doesn't rationalize what's happened, or he's a complete monster. But we worked through those scenes, and those are the scenes I got a lot more notes when I was because what I do is a weekly assembly. So when they're filming, I'll be editing whilst they're filming, and then at the end of the week I'll send them an assembly, and we'll go back and forwards, painful as it were for everybody. But I moved on to a show called Eric, and so Benji actually did a lot of those scenes. He did the fine cut for a lot of those scenes. So I've got him to thank for a lot of that. But I pretty much set everything up, and then he came in and had to do the most awkward parts of it.
Well, he's a co-nominee with you, so you share it together. The fourth episode, I mean,
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean,
the fourth episode, like I think that one has several moments when the screen goes black, and then as you just hear Donnie's voiceover. What was that, something that was written in the script that you were just gonna cut to black for a moment? And so how did you, again, with the timing, like how like it was in the script too, like when to cut back to picture?
yeah, it was. I mean, there's the one just after the abuse, where he talks about he fed the guy's cat, and there's a long pause, and it's for about a minute. And I thought, when I first assembled it, I thought, you can't have this much on over black. People will think something's gone wrong with their TVs, or it's just like. But Rich is so clever that he really believed in it. And I said at one point, I think it's too long over black. But after all of those really horrific scenes, I think that you did need that break before coming back to the real story. And so I think one of them is 1 minute and 27 seconds. They're black. And I was like, there's no way that people are going to like hold for that long. But he was right. It does hold, and you kind of need that moment to just take in what's happened and
It's
take
like
a breath
it's
before
a
the
little
next
cathartic and like a
scene.
sort of a release.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of helps you to readjust before the next thing happens. Otherwise, I think it would have just been like a roller coaster, and everything would have been bombarded. So he does very well to hold um, those shots, or the cuts to black and just the text.
hmm Well, finally, what was your favorite scene to cut?
Um, I think I've I think the canal scene at the end of episode 2
Oh, the jump
was
scare with her.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So because it has everything that Baby Reindeer has, it has a jump scare at the start and then comedy in the middle, and you kind of warm to Martha, and then you think, oh, she's funny, and then you see this turn, and you think, oh no, something really bad's going to happen, and then she chases him and abuses him at the end, and it's just horrific. And so it's got everything that Baby Reindeer has to offer in that one truncated scene, and it's just so intense because it's just the two of them, and there's no escape for Donny because it's next to the canal, and there's no one there. And we did a lot of work on just silencing everything, trying to make everything as quiet as possible, and then and for it just to be so horrific at the end. And for me, that was, I mean, I can't say enjoyable, but it showed what Baby Reindeer did. So it was a great scene.
Was. Well, Peter, it was great speaking with you. Thanks again for your time, and
Thank
congratulations
you.
again on everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Let's
you.
see what happens.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, lovely speaking to you.